2, 3, go. With respect to the pattern is a right side up, a one whole pattern piece. If you do it on the fold, it's okay. It's just that when you cut bias, it's better if you have the whole piece, because you know, especially if you're cutting a single garment, just you can't lay it on the fold on the bias as easily. So to have it in the marker open is your best bet. So here, what I want to know before I do anything is where is my center front? So I have this line that tells me where these pins are. So this was my center front right here. And when I do my pattern, I'm going to use that as my fold of the paper. Matt, can you do me a favor and grab me a pair of those orange handled scissors? I forgot to bring them. Okay. So you can see this is the form, the chalk mark here, side seam, armhole, and then my tucks there, thank you. So to get it a little bit closer, you would measure this 1/2 inch. I'm gonna just do it with my eye for the sake of time. So 1/2 inch there. When it comes to this shape, I usually don't like to leave the triangle in. It's much easier with the sewing machine to do a continuous round. So I'm just gonna kind of round this one out. And then right here, where this notch is, that was my fold. And then my second tuck here. And I forgot to add the 1/2 inch there. I'll add it on the paper. And then this is my armhole. If it's sleeveless, this is 1/4 inch. And then here it's at 1/2 inch. Okay. And now I need paper scissors. You guys ever watch Wheel of Fortune? Do you know that Vanna White is, like, she's been doing this longer than I've been designing? Because there was one time years ago when they were wearing one of our dresses on Wheel of Fortune, and she was already, like, she's amazing. She's older than me. She looks amazing. Thank you, Vanna. So, that's what I always think when I have an assistant and I want to call him Vanna. Anyway. So again, carefully with your seam allowance. And then here, notch, folded notch, and then I go into what looks like to me Jiffy Pop popcorn. Okay. And this is a very unusual looking pattern than what you're used to seeing.
You're technically making a full pattern of the front?
Yes, I recommend it because, again, when you go to cut it on fabric, it's difficult to do bias on the fold. If you're doing, especially if you're doing a production, because they have an open fabric instead of folded fabric. So, better for production purposes. Okay, and then your bias here. So however you find your bias, I usually like to get an inch square and then draw my bias line through it. Okay, and then you could do the same thing if it's not a print that you're concerned about, and you can go either direction on the bias. All right, so this is your front cowl dress. I believe it was a size 8. Just use today's date since it isn't really in the textbook. Today's the 28th, right? And then it's cut 1 on bias. So that will be your pattern information. Now, if you're doing this style for the project and you want to do a different thing for your formal, then you want to add a skirt to this, and they need to match the waist. Okay, if you want to have a notch at center front, you know where that's at. And then these notches transfer to the other side as well. You don't really need a notch here because it just falls in. There's nothing to sew to it. Then your back piece, since I did this one on the bias, the pattern would be the same. I probably don't need a zipper, again, because it gives, but you could put a zipper there if you wanted. And so you would trim this up.
For the front piece, do you finish that edge with an overlock?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally, you could do it like with a little baby hem or something, but and then here you can see I was just a little short with my fabric, so I would just build that seam allowance up. So that's where the edge was. And this is also 1/4 of an inch for facing or finish, however you decide, lining. And then you would walk this to make sure your side seams are the same. So I'm a little bit high on that. A little bit on the waist. So I'm going to take the front waist. And then just transfer that the same to my paper with the bias. Okay? And then clean up your seam allowances. All right, so that's for that. The knit, similar situation, is just your lines are low on the armhole, so your folds are going to be here and your calf is here. It's not going to be as high up. Right?
The seam allowances for the knits are 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch?
If you're sewing knits, we use a 1/4 inch seam allowance.
Okay.
Some companies use 3/8, but 1/4 is fine.
Because isn't that standard on our sergers, the 1/4 inch? I mean, yeah.
Some machine, again, in industry, some machines, they go with the 3/8, but yeah, 1/4 is preferred on knits.